I'm Will Huntsberry, and I cover education for Voice of San Diego. And there's this myth in American history that education can be something known as the great equalizer. And that means that education isn't just good for its own sake, but education can actually be used to break the cycles of poverty in America. The reality today, though, is that education is not working as the great equalizer. And that's why what we do here at Voice is so important, because we shine a light on the parts of the education system that aren't working. So I hope you'll join us in that work and make a pledge today at vosd.org/donate.
This Voice of San Diego podcast is sponsored by Manolatus Nelson Murphy, Advertising and Public Relations. M&M brings decades of experience and their vast network to you. The firm develops insightful strategies and cost-effective tactics to help clients achieve their goals and connect to those who matter most. M&M specializes in media relations, community engagement, crisis communications, and cross-platform marketing. Learn more at mnmadpr.com.
Thanks for joining us on the Voice of San Diego podcast in partnership with News Radio 600 Kogo. I am Scott Lewis, the CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice. I am back. Thank you. Thanks for your applause. I'm joined as always by Andrew Keatts, assistant editor. Hello.
Just happy to have you back.
Yeah, you are. And managing editor Sara Libby. Hello.
Hello.
You were also gone.
I was.
In the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's nice.
Good times.
Yeah.
We've got a full show for you today. We're going to get in on the latest in the San Diego mayor's race. We also have 2 new features this week, a couple of new games we're going to try. One's called
That Happened.
The other is called Donate, Endorse, Recall.
Mm-hmm. Donate, endorse, recall.
Donate, endorse, recall. So some of you of a certain generation might know of another game with a similar structure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can't really say it.
It's inappropriate for the nature of the show, but you'll get it. Donate, endorse, recall.
And on the second half of the show, we interviewed National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo-Solis about National City and South Bay politics. Good stuff. Okay. I do have a story. First, do you guys ever notice how even though you're not kids anymore, you still care what kids think of you? Like you still, like if you speak in front of a group of adults or you speak in front of a group of children, you get just as nervous, if not more. That's how I am.
I think more nervous.
Yeah, like I still want kids, especially like boys, to respect me, you know? So I'm fishing when I'm on my little break at the shore, the ocean, and there's a bunch of maybe 13-year-old boys out there skimboarding.
Terrifying. Yeah,
they're terrifying, right? So they're out there skimboarding. I'm fishing. I'm still a novice fisherman. I'm still struggling, and especially what to do when you catch a fish is still a very exciting moment for me. Still a very scary moment. So I feel it pull this thing in, and I've got a leopard shark, juvenile, but it's about, it's big. It's the biggest fish I've probably ever caught. And these kids are over there, and they notice, and they come running over, and they're like, hey, wow, man, cool. And I have to, at that moment, step up as a man and handle this situation well. And so there's a lot of feelings,
considerable pressure,
nervousness running through me. So I confidently grab the mouth of this thing.
Oh boy!
And I adroitly dislodge the hook, and I hold him up, and the kids are like, "Wow!" And what are you gonna throw it back? Do you keep it? I'm like, the law says I need to throw this back, and he's a young shark. We need to really make sure we respect the ecology. And I just
Did you say ecology in your
I did.
lesson
You
to
did?
these boys?
Oh,
Wow.
jeez.
And
And you're worried about them thinking you're cool, you said.
and I just
The
confidently
way you went about it was, we have to respect the ecology, boys.
so
That's crazy. You weren't more popular in high school. It's hard to imagine.
and then I confidently tossed this little shark back into the water, and he swam away. And I think I pulled it off.
Yeah.
I think it worked out. I was beaming. I was high. I felt a thrill for the rest of the night about it. Just wanted to say, like, sometimes things work out.
You should have beat its head against your kayak until it was dead, and then been like, "Do you guys want this?" Very nonchalantly. Hand it to them, and then just hop back in the boat and paddle off.
I was on the shore
Now
with the big waves.
That's how you
win.
win over 13-year-old boys, Scott.
No. So anyway, it was a much needed time off. It felt great. I'm glad to be back here, though. Andy, was everything okay?
Everything was fine.
Yeah.
Very easy job.
Good. Okay, I went on vacation and I came back and there's still no Republican running for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
The local Democratic Party, though, did make its choice. You guys talked about this. The Democrats endorsed Todd Gloria over City Councilwoman Barbara Bree and Tasha Williamson, the activist. Now, Bree was once the star of the party. Remember this? It wasn't that long ago. 2016, was it?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Feels like a while ago.
It was an eternity ago.
Yeah. No, I don't remember it.
She took on Republican Ray Ellis, trounced him, and the whole party rallied around her. But after she got this news about the endorsement, she sent out an email to supporters, kind of hammering the party. She said, quote, "I'm ready to stand up to the insiders who do not want an independent woman like me standing up for our neighborhood." So, fire. Guess that's you play the cards you're dealt.
That's
Exactly.
Seems very much to me to be the case, yes.
All right. So the whole thing has Bree on the offensive. She released and promoted a video last week on Facebook. And here's a clip of that.
Balboa Park is our city's crown jewel. We have a duty to preserve it for our children and grandchildren. This mayoral election will be critical for our park, as my opponent and I have very different visions for its future. He supported a massive paid parking garage and automobile ramp that would have forever changed our park's character. Under his watch, Balboa Park deteriorated.
Now, the video is really nice, but it sounds like she's calling in from the space station.
Yeah.
But that's the first time I've seen the old Jacobs plan for the Plaza de Panama come up as a mayoral issue. You said Gloria was at the endorsement hearing at the party, and he was asked about that.
Yeah, it was one of the like three questions he was forced to respond to was about his previous support of the Jacobs plan.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't exactly. I mean, it is a matter of public record that he voted for the Jacobs plan and was a pretty enthusiastic supporter of it back at the time. But the way the question was specifically framed was whether he wanted to bring it back, and he decided to focus specifically on that and not say, well, I used to like it, but not anymore. He just said, the fact of the matter is today the Jacobs plan is dead, and tried to leave it at that.
And the park is okay?
Yeah, he said he supported the other plan that's moving forward right now, the idea of taking away the parking spaces in front of the Air and Space Museum and turning that into a plaza, like a temporary plaza, much like the one that's in place right now at Plaza de Panama. He said he's on board with that.
Yeah. This mayoral race,
Sarah,
Sara,
and he said he aggressively opposed the idea of building a hotel and commercial properties down on Inspiration Point.
which was an idea to raise revenue for the park, like in Mission
exactly.
Bay.
Yeah.
This mayoral race, Sara, has a real distinct what wealthy people are worried about aspect. It feels like scooters, Balboa Park.
It really does. It's funny because when Bob Filner ran for mayor, his whole thing was neighborhoods, every neighborhood, and it was like a repudiation of, downtown developers, wealthy interests. And now it's again like neighborhoods, Barbara Bree says neighborhoods in every pitch she sends out, but it's very much like wealthy homeowners. And so it's interesting how that has kind of evolved.
Like these like quality of life issues that are rankling folks.
Right.
It's a good journalism word, right? Rankles.
Yeah.
Okay, and so Gloria's been having to deal with another thing. So Barbara Bree's team have really, and her allies have really brought up a lot of news coverage about this thing he's been dealing with, a budding scandal about what she says is laundering campaign money from one account, an account for a potential re-election run in the assembly that she says he's laundering for his own race. Here was his take on it on KUSI.
Political office. What my campaign did was not file a particular form with the FPPC. When this was brought to my attention, less than 24 hours later, we corrected this problem and then reported it to the authorities and asked them to investigate it fully.
All right, so what are they talking about? I've had so many people ask me about this thing, and let's just help me understand. What is it that happened?
So he is running for mayor.
Yes.
He also has a campaign account open for an Assembly 2020 run. He filled that account in two ways. One, he rolled over money from his Assembly 2018 account and put it into this new account, which is a thing people do. And he raised more money into that account. And then he has donated money from that account to a bunch of different sources. Chris Ward's Assembly campaign, other Assembly campaigns around the state. They gave some money to the local Democratic Party, which they say was for the Roosevelt dinner, specifically, which is a thing that a lot of officials pay for. And what he alludes to here, he did unmistakably, unquestionably, unequivocally make one big mistake, which was they did not initially file a specific form that states your intent to run for an office before opening that account. You need to do that before you open that account. So for the entirety of when that account was open earlier this year until a couple weeks ago when this came forward, he did not have that form on file. And then he was forced to do that, and when it was brought to his attention, he says to do that and report themselves to the FPPC. So he is subject to potential fines for not having that form in place. But the allegation against him is not really about that form.
They're two separate but related issues. One is like a paperwork error.
Yeah.
And one is the process by which you can move money around as a politician through various accounts, which are legal.
Right. And now I imagine that the Glory campaign is really kicking themselves because it would sure be a lot easier to explain that what you're doing is on the up and fine if you did not need to begin with
I messed up
this paperwork, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the form he has to sign says, "I will run for assembly." And part of the scandal too, part of the frustration with the other folks is that when he says, "I will run for assembly," they say, "Well, that's lying. You're not doing that, right?" And what he says in his defense is like, this is what everybody does. I'm a leader in the assembly. I'm expected to raise money for other Democrats in the assembly. This is how it works. And this is one of those scandals we often come across in politics where it's like a thing people do. It's normal. And there is this one mistake, but it's a thing that happens.
Yeah, if you for the sake of having a clear conversation, let's set the paperwork error aside.
Right.
Let's presume he had done that.
Right. So he does, and so it's a thing. It's just how this area works. But when you translate it and explain it to people, it sounds weird. It's to normal people. It's to normal people. It sounds like that's the way it works, but I don't care. That sounds strange. It's and we run into that a lot with like how bonding works at the city of San Diego or how, all of these issues. There's that term for it.
Basically anything in campaign finance.
Right.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, if you look in isolation at any politicians' donors, like in the assembly especially, you can say this person is funded by corporations, but like they're all funded by corporations, like almost universally. And to single somebody out and say like, it's nefarious is just
it's true.
completely missing context. It's true, and it's also very normal.
Yeah, exactly. And so now the root of this, what the allegation is hoping to get out in front of, is something that we've experienced quite a bit recently, which is that now that this money is in this account, there's no specific campaign finance restriction that would keep him from donating this $200-some thousand to the local San Diego County Democratic Party.
And now the party has endorsed him.
Since the party has endorsed him, they could spend that money on any number of things, including talking to their members about how they should vote for him. And so that's basically what they don't want to happen. But that's, so this is a different flavor of the same fight that in a lot of ways falls in line with this. Like, it's normal, it's common, but when you explain it, it sounds wrong, is the Lorena Gonzalez donating lots of money to the Democratic Party, which was then spent on her husband's campaign.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit more than, a lot more than had been done like that before.
Yes.
But it was a normal process. So yeah, in fact, there was an anti-vax lady who called me and wanted to get the real scoop on how that all worked, because she's doing an expose, she said, I've
gotten a lot of anti-vax. Here's the real scoop on Lorena Gonzalez.
Yeah, and I was like, look, I just, I don't. It's legal, but yeah, I understand why it sounds weird when you explain it.
Well, in this case, the city of San Diego did adopt campaign finance limits that keep individual donors below a certain limit to campaigns, and that the money must come from an individual, whereas those restrictions are not in place at the state level. So you can get money in large chunks from a corporation, and in this case you could then donate it to the party, and the party could spend it in your race. So, but again, it's like even some of the people who are making these allegations are people who've benefited from this process in some ways. I mean, the San Diego County Democratic Party spends money on its endorsed candidates in every election cycle, and that campaign account, or that budget, is filled by donations like this from elected people in the county.
All right, we have a new game. Donate, Endorse, Recall. You might have known a game in your childhood known as Kiss, Marry, Kill. Mm-hmm. There's another version.
That's right.
There's another version. But this is ours. Donate, Endorse, Recall. I hope you like it. We'll see how it goes. So this week we are going to pick 3 topics.
We will, I should say, ideally, eventually, we will have Donate, Endorse, Recall that we can apply to specific policy questions,
sure,
political coverage. To give you a taste of it, we're going to use it a little bit more simply here,
right,
on some issues that you're probably familiar with.
Right. Very proud of the juices of creativity that were flowing through Andy this week. All right, so the first one, I'm going to start with you, Sarah.
Okay.
Ocean Beach, Pacific Beach, Mission Beach. Now there's OB, PB. Nobody ever says MB, right?
No one does say that.
Yeah. All right, so OB, PB, and Mission Beach.
Okay.
Endorse, donate,
for the terms here, donate will be, like, you get a little dalliance with it. You get to go there every once in a while.
Throw a little love its way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Endorse, you'll be moving there.
Yeah.
You're into it.
That's your new place.
Yeah.
And recall, it's gone.
It's off the map.
It does not exist anymore.
Okay.
Donate, endorse, recall.
Okay. I think I'm going to donate to PB.
Oh, okay.
Endorse OB.
Mm-hmm.
And Mission Beach, you're recalled. You're done.
Done.
Recall Mission Beach.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I hear a little bit about this? Why?
Well, I used to live in OB, so that's easy. Mm-hmm. Endorse.
Mm-hmm.
No, the other two, it's harder. I think of them as equally fine / sort of undesirable. I never go to either of those places ever.
PB's bigger. If you were gonna like reserve one for a place you could go every once in a while, you'd be getting more for your money in PB.
All right, you, Andy?
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna recall OB. Peace.
Okay.
Later.
Is that just a shot at me?
it's a fringe benefit,
It's
certainly.
not a shot at you.
No, I like OB. I'm a big fan of Winston's. I go there as much as I can, but OB's got enough fans out there. They don't need one more. And then I'm gonna endorse Mission Beach. I think there's something very, very simple and peaceful about staying in Mission Beach. Walk around. The pathways from between Mission and the beach, the like little bungalow density there it's quite nice. A lot of houses there. I like it. And I'm gonna donate PB. It's a nice little outlet.
All right, I'm going to endorse Ocean Beach. Obviously, it's kind of what I do, right? I'm going to donate to Mission Beach.
For the reasons we've said here.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of a lot of recreational. And I'm going to recall Pacific Beach.
Somebody had to.
I mean, PB is such an easy target, though.
Yeah.
Unfairly, in many ways,
you know
in
why?
my opinion. Unfairly.
You know why?
North
it's the
PB is
hardest
very
place
nice.
to get to.
OB is not easy to get to. Let's be real.
But it's harder to get to PB, like the heart of like North PB or something.
North PB, you gotta really want to go there.
All right, sorry about that, Mom and Dad. Okay, the first installment of another segment. Sarah.
All right, it's called That Happened.
Let's
get to the first one. The year was 2015. Andy and Maya, another reporter of ours, published a big investigation on Lilac Hills Ranch, revealing some shady things that the developer of the project had done as it was trying to get this thing approved. It included trying to bully a family into selling off its land, pumping thousands of dollars into a county supervisor campaign and a local fire board campaign. In the face of all the criticism after that, the developer still had to try and persuade the county that it was worth approving this project. So they turned to a pitch that was robots. That's the pitch.
Specifically, the robots perform some very vital services.
Yeah. So among the services that the robots would provide to this community, if it was approved, people moved there. They could deliver your groceries to your home, they said. Also very, child care conscious. They could walk your kids to school for safety. There would also be robot
This is real.
The walking your kids to school was such a what would the robot do? Is it weaponized?
Yeah. There would also be robot pods that took people around the community instead of cars. So that was it. County supervisors approved this because robots.
Yeah, I went back and looked at this. The company couldn't figure out what disruptive company they were like. So at one point they wrote, it's like a bike share program, but where you don't have to pedal and where the bike comes to you. And then in that same press release, the same person said, imagine Uber, but where there are neither drivers nor cars. And so I'm trying to imagine Uber where there are neither drivers nor cars, and I just don't have. It's just a blank void. That is what Uber is. It's a driver service. What is it?
Yeah. So that happened.
Other side of the break, Sarah and I sit down with the mayor of National City, Alejandra Sotelo-Solis. She's the first Latina mayor of that city. We are going to talk to her about her first year as mayor, her priorities for the city in terms of transportation and housing, and how National City fits into the rest of the region. A lot of South Bay politics. It's a good conversation. Stay with us.
Voice of San Diego is a media partner of Pop-Up Magazine, a live magazine created for a stage, screen, and a live audience. Come see the sensational night of true stories featuring your favorite writers, radio producers, and comedians at the Observatory North Park on September 23rd. Tickets and information at popupmagazine.com.
joined in the Great Voice San Diego podcast studio by Alejandra Sotelo-Solis. She's the mayor of National City. Welcome.
Buenos días. Good morning.
¿Cómo estamos?
Muy bien. Very excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, thank you for coming in. We have a lot to talk about. But first, I think let's get to know you and talk about what you do every day. So, National City, describe National City and how you came to this position.
Fantastic. So, good morning. National City is about 8 square miles. Here we are flanked by the city of San Diego to the north, Chula Vista to the south. And we have roughly about 60,000 people. The average income for our households of 4 is $41,000. So we have a working class community, predominantly Latino, followed with Filipino, Caucasian, and African American, other APIs. And so our community extremely diverse. And like myself, I'm third generation. My girls being fourth generation. So we have a small town feel, but big city attitude. In that we really work to bring more opportunities for our community. And in 2018, I was elected the first woman, first Latina for the mayoralship in 131 years. And it truly, after serving 10 years on the city council, definitely something that I'm extremely proud of. But, with every job and every responsibility, I take it very serious. But I love what I do. I announced in the 5th grade I was going to be the mayor of the city. So my campaign started early.
I'm not sure I knew what a mayor was in 5th grade, so congrats on that.
Well, I grew up 4 blocks away from City Hall,
right,
on the west side. So for me, I always knew it was a building where decisions were made, but they weren't asking this little brown hair, brown-eyed little Chicanita growing up on the west side her opinion.
Yeah.
And I always knew that that's where things were being decided. And I didn't know it was quality of life. I didn't know that phrase, nor did I know environmental justice. I didn't know, but I knew what it felt like.
Right.
And so as a, person who grew up there, went to all the local schools, even a former Miss National City, commissioner, police explorer, this is home.
Right.
And so, so this is, being in this role has been truly amazing. In the last 8 months, a whirlwind.
Cool. Let me just get the lay. So the mayor of National City serves on the city council. How many members of the city council are there?
So we have 5 members, including the mayor, and they're all elected at large. So we don't have districts in National City. But
is that going to change?
Well, we do have legislation that will be dictating that. So we are looking into that as well. Just as a bigger conversation. I believe there's other communities that are experiencing that for the first time.
Is the mayor a full-time job?
It is, and I will put my air quotes on, it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
But the position itself is, I have an office, I'm there pretty much 24/7.
Yeah.
And as a council person, you're a part-time elected official,
Right.
but your responsibilities are, as mayor, to be present, greet members and dignitaries, also do the ribbon cuttings, kiss the babies, the whole 9 yards as elected officials. But it's also to dictating what the agenda is going to look like, working hand in hand with our city manager, looking at those other policies, with the regional boards, have appointment authorities. And so, yes, a full-time gig, and yes, a full-time commitment.
So that means you don't have another job right now?
I don't. I have a small business that is on standby right now.
What was that?
I was a grant writer. But that, when you run a city, goes off to the side. Yeah.
Well, let me ask, so there was some tension for a few months there. The former mayor, Ron Morrison, wanted the job again, tried various tactics to allow him to run for another term. It didn't come together. Now he's on the city council. How are relations there going?
Well, it was when we had BNC both on the ballot during the March election. There were a lot of questions. Well, why is this being asked of us when the residents and the constituents of National City said, we want term limits, we want that turnover? And so the voters spoke, and they said wholeheartedly, we want to keep term limits, regardless of who's in the office.
Right.
And so Councilmember Morrison ran, and he won. And so having him there, I think, is an asset, and also, too, an ability to say, with new leadership comes new ideas. Do we see eye to eye on everything? No, but is that something that happens in a democracy? 100%. You don't have to be 100% on board with every issue. And so I think for myself, having someone like that, but also too being able to have my own vision about what I want to leave as my legacy as mayor, and I plan to be there for the next 12 years, God willing. But I think working hard and showing my community, one, if they want to strive for their goals, they can, whatever that be. But two, we have a voice at the table.
Yeah.
So that's one big thing for myself.
Okay.
Aside from the term limit issue, I think some of us in this office who have kind of kept tabs on National City, many of us have covered all kinds of different governments for years. A lot of us have been struck by how tense and vitriolic things can get on the city council in National City. You know, a year or so ago, we wrote about how even things like decisions about a community garden became really intense fights. Has that gotten any better, or how do you work in a situation like that when even, you know, these routine issues can become like pretty toxic?
Well, I want to invite all of the staff of the Voice of San Diego to come to one of my council meetings. We've actually been able to have several meetings where it's gone 5-0. 5-0 on every item. Our meetings are on time. We set ourselves an end time goal of 10 o'clock. We've finished not only early, but we've given the gift of time and really staff. Because when you have that type of discussion and discourse, you know, it has, you know, an impact on the people that are in the audience. And, you know, being on council, I saw things that I liked and I saw things that I wanted to improve upon. And having a new city manager on board with Brad Ralston, having new ideas, I think it allows for that flexibility. And people are willing and wanting to see that.
All right, let's get into some issues.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
We noticed a Union Tribune story today. David Hernandez wrote a piece about, we've been talking about this issue for a while, about housing supply and about the sort of expectations the state has on cities and regions to produce housing. And so just to give an overview of this, the state sends down what it expects each region to produce for housing, how many units to approve. And then local agencies, in this case, SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments, decides how many units, how many housing units each city should have to build. Now, those have been contentious in the past. There was a sort of an effort to lower the request from the state that SANDAG put forward, and that produced an interesting discussion, as there were some members of SANDAG who said, we want to keep those expectations high. We want to expect our cities to do more. But I just noticed National City and Imperial Beach were pushing back a little bit. They felt like they were being expected, these two cities were being expected to develop too many new homes, I think is what came apart. In the UT, it said, where the city's planning guides could accommodate the number of units, the city has been assigned under the proposed allotment of 5,403. City staffers and leaders say they've already set out to carry their own weight. And then you said, unlike other cities, quote, to the north, that it only had to build 30 units to a couple hundred units, National City stepped up to meet its allotment the previous planning cycle. And basically you're saying we got assigned too many. Is that fair?
I would say that the way we looked at the RHNA allocation in this last cycle, we believe that housing should be built. And as I mentioned, we're an 8.5 square mile community. Mm-hmm. So we're pretty tight. We've had to think creatively and repurpose certain spaces to allocate and to meet those allocations from the low to the very low, and now moderate and above moderate income levels. And for me, it's about equity. And it's, as the article went on to say, it's about where my income family, with a $41,000 income individual, can go to any community outside of National City and afford to live there, whether they want to rent or become homeowners in the future. And we know that $41,000 is, they'll probably have to get 2 or 3 jobs, which is what's usually the case, that we have those opportunities throughout the San Diego County. Mm-hmm. And also, too, with SANDAG, they had the opportunity, again, as you mentioned, to go to the lower amount, $131,000, I believe the number was. But again, people said, we need and have a massive constituency that needs homes. One, we're going to grow. One, there's all of these elements that come into it. And we said, we're going to step up to the call.
National City did too.
They were part of that voting. I was not on the board at that time, but it was something that as a COG, as a Council of Governments, SANDAG members, all of them voting members said, well, why not? Let's do it. And when that bar was set, then some say sausage making, we've decided to go with soup. That sounds a little, tastier. But when you make soup, there's so many different elements, but we can't just carve certain things out or just leave elements out because then it leaves it less flavorful. Mm-hmm. And for our community, we have, again, the need for affordable housing. And again, that affordable may have certain connotations for certain communities, but it's veterans, it's seniors, it's students, it's working class people who have 2 and 3 jobs, it's the people in the military. So when we start talking about affordability, my thing is that all countywide perspectives should be, to my colleagues, is that they build their affordable, and when I say affordable, it's low and very low income housing as allocated. And we know in our housing element, we have it in the kitty. We have it in the queue to build, and we will meet our RHNA allocation. Now, it's how we get there, and we have people approaching us now in National City to talk about these housing opportunities and new and innovative ways to, whether it be micro units using cargo containers, tiny homes, ADU units, all of these elements. So will we get there? National City will get there. I need my colleagues to the northeast, and in the San Diego County say we will do our share as well.
So just to be clear, you're saying you're fine with the number. You just want these other cities to have the same number.
I think at the end,
a comparable. I
think at the end of the day, communities like National City should be rewarded and given an extra star, maybe with a couple of zeros, in grant dollars for stepping up to the call and saying we will meet those numbers. And for us, we can help our colleagues help meet their needs as well.
So that you're not saying in the story that you oppose that number. It's about equity.
Well, when we talk about I would say yes, about equity.
Uh-huh.
And when we start talking about the distribution, when our numbers are upped by a couple hundred or 1,000 units because of definitions with regards to mass transit versus high frequency, it's in how we interpret things. Get 2 lawyers in a room, we're going to have two different explanations of things. And I think when we start talking about what housing means, it's not just building the house or unit. It's about having access to transportation, effective, efficient, cost-effective transportation, and then looking at where the jobs are. Because if I can walk to my job, it's going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And so it's thinking about it bigger picture as well. And as SANDAG, it's not one organization or one municipality versus the other. It's really taking that step back.
Right.
I'm glad you mentioned transit because I wanted to get in a couple questions about the MTS ballot measure. Awesome. The first one being, do you have a position on it yet?
So our Councilmember Mona Rios is the vice chair of MTS, and we have been very active with getting our community out and engaged in the Elevate San Diego conversations, because before we take a full-on stance as a city, we want to hear what our constituency is saying. And National City has one of the highest riderships in the county. And we know that we have to be creative.
So, yes.
To what?
We're talking about the MTS sales tax increase.
Well, we haven't officially taken a stance as a city.
And you personally haven't.
Well, personally, I think it's important. I was one of those people who went to UC San Diego, had to take the bus, had to take the trolley, and it took me 2 hours to get there.
Yeah.
As a student, they were talking about the trolley. So now the Mid-Coast is here. I'm all for more transportation options to connect educational institutions and, cities to those opportunities.
Would you prioritize like more frequent bus service versus more like building of rail lines?
I think it's a combination of both, because we can't have one without the other. And yes to both. I think we have to think outside the box, and even having flexible fleets. So inner city transportation that allows you to get from one side of the city to the other. Honestly, I want National City to be a model for everyone else in the county. 8 square miles, 6,000 people. Why not? And if I can get an optional mode of transportation that's not part of the existing system, then why not?
Do you have any concerns, or have you heard concerns from constituents about, adding more to the sales tax for a community that already, has pretty high taxes?
I think at this point, when we know that within the city of National City, much of the tax revenue is brought in by people who come and shop in National City or watch a movie. It's the community as of right now, because we're still in that listening stage. We haven't really heard any opposition. But again, we're still early on. I think there's always a dialogue that will eventually happen. And, I think when it comes down to it, when you're able to show people what it means, when we have, with our 1 cent sales tax in National City, we were able to show our library hours open longer, our staff for PD and fire increased. People saw it. People were happy. And, well, hey, now I know where my money's going. And I think if we're able to show it with transportation and other elements, people see the benefit. So I think you have to show, put your money where your mouth is. Make sure that people can actually see it.
Fascinating.
So I wanted to ask, we talked about relations on the council itself, but going kind of further into the community, how have community relations between the police department been going in the years since Earl McNeil's in custody death? Obviously, there's a new mayor and a new police chief, but are there still anger issues and ongoing tensions?
Yeah, well, with Chief Tejas, who is our new chief, him and I have been having regular meetings about ways in which to strengthen the community relationship with our police department, have a good relationship with our POA, and at the end of the day, it's making sure that when it comes to legislation or policies that are coming down, whether it be from the state, the county, or even our own municipality, that we work hand in hand with our police department to make sure, one, they're going to, be able to, meet that threshold, which they do. And also, too, just recognize that our community wants to be heard and acknowledged. So right now, we're doing okay. I mean, we've been working on the National Night Out. We had excellent turnout for both fire and PD, and the community response was amazing. So I would say right now, community relations are going good. I mean, we have a new person, and Chief Tejas is, from the community, moved up in rank. And so he has the ability to, walk and talk with rank and file, and also too with the community of National City.
Do you have a preference in the Board of Supervisors race for the South Bay? We've got Ben Hueso, state senator, running. We've got Rafael Castellanos from the Port Commission running. Nora Vargas, a few others have been in the mix. Have you made a choice?
Supervisor Greg Cox has done great things for our community, and we appreciate all the work that he's done. And I do, and have placed my flag in a candidate's campaign, but I know all of the candidates really well, and they've all been very supportive of all of the efforts of National City.
But you're not ready to talk about it.
Oh, I'll say it. Nora Vargas.
Okay.
Supporting Nora.
Thank you. Good. And do you expect anything from the county, the relations between the county and National City?
I think with any one of those three leaders, we will have an open dialogue and an open door with what our needs are. When we talk about enrollment in AFDC, when we talk about looking at food stamps or SNAP or after-school programs or foster care programs, grandparents raising grandchildren, all of those elements, I think any one of those three will be able to step up to the call of what National City needs.
You said you talked about the strategic plan for National City. One thing I've always found fascinating about it is it's right there near the bay, but it's so boxed in by the Navy and by the structure of the freeways and everything. Is there a vision you guys have been exploring for the port? I remember when I moderated a debate for your race last year at this time, I asked about whether the port commissioner, longtime port commissioner, should change. Duque Valderrama has been representing the city for a long time. Has that evolved? What's the next vision for your access to the port?
Well, that's one of the things that 60 years ago, when there was that land swap, National City lost its access to the waterfront.
Yeah.
And the one spot that we have is there at Pepper Park. And we've had partnership with the port to bring in our aquatic center and do amenity improvements. And what that bigger project is, it's called the Balance Plan. And so we have 2 land pads that we're thinking, what do we want to build there? Because that's our ability to generate revenue. Some money's for the city, whether it be for parks, for PD, for fire, more parks and rec, whatever that looks like. And so right now with the strategic plan, it gives us the opportunity to say to everyone, let's cast our nets wide. We have these opportunities. And even with what we look at, whether it be representation on the port, I'm looking at someone who has the commitment to National City, and that's what Port Commissioner Duque Valderrama has brought to the city. And even prior, Jess Van Deventer, I don't know if you heard, he just passed this past weekend. So former council member, Port Commissioner, Water Commissioner. We have people who have committed their lives to serving National City. And as a business person, both Duque and Jess knew what it meant when we're talking about being a port commissioner as part of a bigger body. Because when Chula Vista succeeds in their bayfront, we succeed. Because when they have overflow in any of their events, guess where they're going to look for their hotel? Right across the water in National City or in Imperial Beach. So again, thinking regionally, how each of those elements play and bounce off of each other, I really think that Duque's done a good job in that. And when we look to the future, it's having that same type of passion and commitment to advocating that we have access to the waterfront and that we have people, give people the ability, whatever age they are, from 0 to 5 to 105, that they can dip their feet in the water.
Have you seen any impact in National City from some of the increased immigration enforcement that's happened over the last couple of years? I mean, we've seen some, like viral videos of high-profile arrests of people being arrested in front of their children and things like that. Have you heard concerns from the community?
It's interesting because we are predominantly Latino community, immigrant, but we also too have these systems in place where it be the rapid response line, where if there are those concerns, we've asked people to call the line because we don't want false rumors to go out. And it's been through the partnership with ACLU, Jewish Family Services, SDOP, that anytime we've had those concerns or incidences, it's been very finite and very tight. Although there are consequences, let's just say there was one, oh my gosh, ICE is in a grocery store parking lot. Well, that grocery store actually saw 50% decrease in attendance that day, and then even that through the very next day. It was a weekend. And so we know there are implications, intended and unintended, consequences for both businesses and community, but it's our job as the elected officials to, reinforce that, our police department is not ICE and non-enforcement of, immigration laws, and that there are mechanisms and agencies that will help.
All right. Alejandra Sotelo-Solis, she's the mayor of National City, came in and spoke about how things are going. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Much appreciated.
Thanks for listening to the Voice of San Diego podcast, the most popular political affairs and public affairs podcast recorded in downtown San Diego, at least at the corner of Ash and First. Don't forget, you have time to pledge to Voice of San Diego during our fundraising campaign. Right now, there's a match going on. We need your help to get to this $2,000 match. So if you can give your gift, it's doubled. And of course, when you donate, you can write us a note that we may read on the show. And most importantly, when you donate, you're supporting independent investigative reporting in San Diego. Please, this is how we pay the bills. Need you to step up. You can give at vosd.org/donate. Thank you so much. I'm Scott Lewis, Editor-in-Chief at Voice. Andrew Keatts is Assistant Editor. Sarah Libby's Managing Editor. This show is produced by Nate John, Adriana Heldies, and Megan Wood. And we will talk to you next week.